Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. I am Paradoxus Alpha, and I've been practicing Thelemic ceremonial magic for 3 decades. This rather technical talk is a companion to another that deals with structural and practical issues in the Star Ruby, and I hope to release that other in due course. Although Ritual 25 was published as an official ritual of AA, it has also been prescribed for the general use of all Thelemites and practitioners of magic in the new eon. I am a withdrawn probationer of AA, and I claim no imprimatur or official authority for these remarks on the topic. You must judge my claims on their theoretical and practical merits alone. I also hope that better informed auditors will forgive my untutored and barbarous pronunciation of Greek throughout this talk. In Crowley's first rewriting of the Lesser Pentagram Ritual, a verse paraphrase he entitled "The Palace of the World," he added a footnote to the effect that those who regard this ritual as a mere device to invoke or banish spirits are unworthy to possess it. Properly understood, it is the medicine of metals and the stone of the wise. Certainly, such judgment pertains even more strongly to this ritual of the blazing star, reformulated for the use of the adherents of Thelema. But whether or not the practitioner appreciates its true value, repeated practice of the ceremony has the effect of organizing and strengthening the personal aura of the magician until it becomes perfectly equilibrated and adamantine. This analysis will focus on the original form of the Star Ruby, a Class D ritual included as Chapter 25 of Aleister Crowley's Book of Lies. The later revision of that ceremony, included in the appendices to Magic and Theory and Practice, has received more widespread attention and practice, and many have argued that it supersedes the original. My personal perspective, however, after many years of practice and study, is to view the revised Star Ruby as an unperfected transitional form, the genuine virtues of which are more effectively implemented in the distinct ritual of the Mark of the Beast, composed as Liber Reguli at about that time. The original version, on the other hand, in both its origins and expression, is more of a piece with the vision and the voice and the Thelemic Gnostic Mass, and it has therefore received priority in my personal practice. Moreover, I am taking as my point of departure here a comment of Crowley's on the Book of Lies chapter particularly, where he says of the words io fale, the secret sense of these words is to be sought in the numeration thereof. This comment is an explicit invitation to the practice of Gematria, and so it happens that not only that phrase, but words and formulae throughout the ritual can be illuminated in this manner. Before proceeding, I would like to acquaint you with 3 of my principal sources for studying this topic. Besides Crowley's own Book of Lies for the canonical form of the ritual, I have relied on Kieran Berry's Greek Kabbalah, which affords discussions of Gematria technique and a fairly robust set of correspondences. The third book, David Feidler's Jesus Christ, Son of God, is particularly key. It supplies an appreciation of the ways in which Gematria and kindred arithmologies were used in antiquity and the early development of Christianity. Many contemporary magicians are accustomed to working with Hebrew Gematria, but its application in Greek, while in fact older and more robust, is comparatively exotic in contemporary magic. Practice is consistent, of course. Both languages are isopsephic, using a single set of characters for both letters and numbers. The numeric values of the individual letters of a word sum to produce a value, which can be compared with other words and phrases of the same value, providing substance for contemplation. So let's start with the cry that starts and concludes the ritual, which I call the apotheosm, and I've also heard it referenced as an exorcism. Literally, the ritualist says, "All evil spirits be gone." This phrase, apopantos kakodaimonos, is allegedly taken intact from Greek Orthodox liturgy. The word apo gives us 151, the value of Greek words for eye and dust. Perhaps read as, "You are dust to my eye," that is negligible but irritating. Pontos, with the value of 701, gives us the letter tau spelled in full. Now, tau is generically a mark used in ancient Greek the way English customarily uses an X as a signature by the illiterate. Now, the word kilusma as a command or shout seems almost redundantly to underscore the ritual moment in the star ruby. This word has, however, a particular biblical provenance in Thessalonians chapter 4, where it is Jesus Christ descending from the heavens who utters the shout in question. Kakodaimonos has suitable correspondences for its value 556, as you can see here. Taken together, we might synthesize the terms elicited by 701 and 556 to say, "I mark the inferior ones with my commanding speech." The total value of the apotropeism has the most interesting correspondences. When we sum it entire, we find the value 1408, and the plaintive sense of the Greek echo with this value suits the dismissal of the bad spirits or cacodemons and alludes to the repetitive nature of this part of the ceremony. Soter, or savior, was an epithet of Dionysus and other gods who presided over the antique mystery cults long before it was co-opted by Christianity as a title for Jesus. And hermeneutic suggests the translation from profane conditions to the sacred circumstance of the rite. In the cross-Qabalistic, the individual words do have some interesting values. Certainly, isopsephic significance is to be expected of an important formula like IAO, where the anagram Io points to the action of the Ruach. The doves are suggestive of the central symbol of the Otio Laman, and the Mastos Asteris correspondences seem to invoke the milk of the stars. The idea of soy as relating to serpent venom is especially appealing in the light of the central theme of Liber 65, thus helping to confirm the Algoides, or personal genius, rather than a more general godhead, as the addressee of this invocation. Almost paradoxically, the secret sense of the vocative o phale includes the sum of both the nominatives theas and phalos, indicating the organs of generation for both sexes. The total value of the cross-Qabalistic at 5,923 is too high to permit easy correlations by means of standard references. Now, in this case, however, since the individual terms of the formula are deployed separately across the body of the magician, there are some further composite values that may be of use, as in any case where there are clearly distinct or separated components in a larger formula. The ones I will use here are the arithmetic, geometric, and harmonic means. Here is a geometric representation of all three to the values A and B. Capital A is the arithmetic mean of A and B, G is their geometric mean, and H their harmonic mean. And algebraic formulas for the three, when applied to the values x sub 1 through x sub n, are simple to express for the arithmetic, the geometric, and the harmonic means alike. The arithmetic mean is simply the value most average to the set. If all the excesses are canceled against the lacs, each would adjust to the arithmetic mean. It is thus the common orientation of all the values and relates to basic scalar quantity. According to Pythagorean tradition, the geometric mean relates to direction in space, and thus its value suggests where the magician is placed by the formula. The harmonic mean, on the other hand, is associated with direction in time, so its value characterizes the change worked by the formula. So, applying these to the various terms of the cross-Qabalistic, we find that their arithmetic mean, the fundamental common quantity, suggests that each of the terms serves to fortify and enliven a sephira within the magician's sphere of sensation. The geometric mean suggests placement, and in this case, the speaker claims descent from a mason, and thus the inherited power and authority to build fortifications. It characterizes the change worked by the formula. The correspondences here are quite lucid. By means of the cross-Qabalistic, the magician asserts his free will and marks himself with a character, that is, the cross, by which that liberty is signified. Now we turn to the four principal god names of the ritual associated with the pentagrams projected to the four quarters. For literary context, these should, of course, be studied in the Vision and the Voice for Chaos and Babylon, and in the Golden Ass and Plato's Phaedrus for Eros and Psyche. Through some simple addition of letter values, we discover that our secret and ineffable Lord, in his name Chaos, actually equates to skotaios, the Greek word for secret. The web or weave, that is pharos, might relate to the Latin equivalent textus, in suggesting the distinctions and relationships inherent in the word. Pharos was also an island near Alexandria that gave its name to the lighthouse built upon it, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. The correspondences for Babylon speak strikingly for themselves. Eros, who conquers all, should be considered armed and unpredictable, according to Gematria as well as by general consensus. The sole Gematria equivalence for Psyche seems at first a little off-key, but if these names are identified through the formula of Tetragrammaton with the corresponding parts of the soul, then Psyche is the nephesh, and therefore the animal soul concerned with both appetites and fears. Now, if we take all 4 of these god names in combination according to the method already practiced, we find that the arithmetic mean yields some very intelligible correspondences. Any neighboring pair of the names can be taken as linked to the other in a symmixis or marriage. Each of the names is placed on the circle that the magician paces in order to establish them. That circle is identified with the river Styx, the boundary between the exterior world of the living and the hidden world of the dead that is Hades. The interior of the circle is thus established as the world of the shades and spirits, an interworld of dream and vision. Valuable reading in this connection includes Spiritual Body and Celestial Earth by Henri Corbin, as well as The Dream and the Underworld by James Hillman. The geometric mean of the pentagram names characterizes the interworld in which the magician has placed himself. It is not a safe and drowsy retreat. Quite the contrary, it involves a surge of divine presence to form a precinct fit for operations of ritual slaughter. A universe where angels are at home and where living humans venture at peril. Is it hubris that brings the magician here? But the net effect of this change does not daunt the ritualist. The result of placing the pentagrams is that he experiences ecstasy. She is blessed. He receives the bliss from the great sea of Binah through his own neshama, or intuitive faculty. Restriction beyond Karonzon in the name of Babylon. The 4 names identified with the pentagrams and delivered with the sign of Horus are highly charged, and their interrelationships, or symmixes, marriage, that is to say marriages, deserve further exploration. These are effectively latent figures and features of the star ruby, which could be activated through the star sapphire, understanding chaos to be pater, Babylon as mater, Eros as philios, and Psyche as philia in the latter ritual. Since these values are more potential than actual in the work of the star ruby, an exhaustive study of the correspondences would be out of place here. Still, there are a few that bear remark. The fact that the sum of chaos and Babylon equals a Greek phrase for the magician is evocative of the declaration in Liber B that the magus is love and bindeth together that and this in his conjuration. Moving on to the stooping syzygy of Babylon and Eros, we find that their sum, as Timoria, suggests the shedding of the blood of the saints into the cup of the vengeance of the mother. In both the higher and stooping syzygies, the harmonic means of the two terms create a correspondence with the Greek word for key, with and without an article. Moving on once more, we find that in the lower and rising syzygies, known correspondences are in much shorter supply, but values for the geometric means are still somewhat provocative. We see in this slide some identities for the arithmetic and geometric means of Eros and Psyche. And here are some values and correspondences for the fourth or rising syzygy between Psyche and Chaos. Now, the marriages just listed omit two further possible pairings. The masculine pentagram names are latitudinal, positioned toward the two horizons of the east and west. The longitudinal names are feminine, placed at the tropics where the circle turns from the south and north. As with the previous combinations, these are not emphasized by the course of the ritual, but the latitudinal names may be taken to inform the component triangles of the underfoot hexagram, which Crowley describes as an emergent property of the lesser pentagram ritual, while the longitudinal ones relate to the similar hexagram overhead. The sum of the masculine names is the value of Minotaur, the child of Pasiphae, traditionally appreciated by the vulgar as a monstrous calamity visited on the house of Minos because of his refusal to sacrifice to Poseidon a bull, which bull then sired the Minotaur with his queen. The story of Pasiphae is, in fact, one of the chief classical illustrations of the formula called the beast conjoined with the woman that pertains to the grade of major adept, and it is evoked in the prophet's vision of the 16th ether. In his Cefalu diaries, however, Crowley alluded to the Minotaur as a figure for the result of male homoerotic magic. He wrote, "This truth learn thou, Genesthai, brother of mine. Learn this, thou bull, in my Pasiphae pasture. Learn thou that I, worn out with wallowing though I be, or seem to be to thee, can breed thee Minotaur, while these meek calves that tempt thee with soft comeliness will but give birth to their base kind, to kine potential of no more than milk, veal, beef, and leather." So wrote Crowley in 1920. Extolling perhaps the unnatural basis of the union he hoped for with Charles Frederick Russell. The word Sophius that we see for the geometric mean of 981 could suggest the Qabalistic Chokmah as a supernal masculine principle. On the other hand, if understood as of Sophia, the celestial mate of the adept according to the traditions of Sophianic mysticism, then it could indicate Babylon as the mother who alternately claims both the father and the son as her own. The word hypothesis that we see identified with the harmonic mean of 974 originally meant foundation. It's literally set under, and might profitably be interpreted to reference the Sephra Yesod, and thus to have a phallic significance. The geometric mean of the feminine names has the value of the goddess Hestia, which is also the Greek word for hearth. Forlong Dux observes that the Indo-European etymology of the word is a root meaning to shine or to burn, and that the cults of Hestia, Vesta, and cognate goddesses always involve the tending of an eternal flame. It is this sense of guarding the sacred energy that should govern the interpretation of this value, rather than a more pedestrian idea of domesticity. Likewise, skene meant temple as well as house, and Hestia was, in fact, typically represented as wearing a veil. Having completed an analysis of the god names singly and in their various combinations, we now move to the central feature of the ritual, the Paian. Now, this begins with the cry of rapture, Io, which has the same value as the war cry, Boi, and both are subsumed in the concept of helalia, meaning not necessarily linguistic speech, but any vocal utterance. By means of the value of the letter pi, the number 80 corresponds to the various possible meanings of the 27th path of the tree of life. That is, the letter pe, which includes a large set of martial correspondences harmonizing with Bowie. The value 131 for Pan suggests the birth of a master of the temple and giving the resulting child to suck in the sign Mater Triumphans. This initiatory transformation is the ultimate change toward which the AA offers to guide aspirants. The Qabalistic path of the priestess is the 13th, joining Keter to Tiferet, the direct descent along which, cast down through the abyss is the light, the rosy cross, the rapture of union that destroys, that is the way. The rosy cross is the ambassador of Pan, as we learn from the Book of Lies. This descending rosy cross might also be compared to the cruciform dove that descends in the center of the lamen of OTO. The total value of the phrase Iopan identifies it as the point of equilibrium, inserted by Frater Perdurabo to serve as the fulcrum of the pentagram ritual. Equilibrium is marked as an essential condition of attainment throughout the literature of Thelema. Direct instruction of a general sort on this topic is given in Liber 30, Liber 41, Liber 90, and in Magic, Part 3, Chapter 8, among many others. Indeed, the initials OTO and AA alike are equilibrated combinations of letters, with each letter equilibrated on its own axis. In Liber 400, the fifth column from the right gives the methods of equilibrium suited to the different stages of attainment. The neophyte setting out in the bottom row seeks balance among the shells with the letter Kuf. As we read in Magic, any idea not equilibrated is below the abyss, contains in itself unmitigated duality or falsehood, and is, to that extent, cliphotic and dangerous. The graphic emblem of this falsehood and this discipline among the Qliphote is the moon trump of the tarot, with a running stream, a cursus, course, or curse, flanked by the hounds love and death, which are the letters P and N of Pan, where the aspirant's own microcosm figures as the A. Adepts of the magic of light must exercise equilibrium on the path, as represented in the adjustment trump. In contrast to the open area filled with drops of blood in the moon trump, the middle field of adjustment shows a woman or goddess with a sword along her central axis. The design is structured around that of the Masonic jewel of a prince of Jerusalem, a diamond enclosing a sword and balances, another modification of which appears as a lamen in Magic. In the Masonic jewel, the letters D and Z for Darius and Zerubbabel appear over the cups of the balances. In both Crowley's redesigns, the Laman and the trump, the letters are alpha and omega, as the first and the last. Adding the letters of the Thelemic design to those in the Masonic jewel yields the two-lettered Hebrew words Od and Oz, signifying insubstantiality and solidity. The cups of the balances can be read as the testes and the sword as the phallus. Thus, the testes contain the extremes of human experience in potentia, from Aleph beginning to Omega end. They hold the vital principle of the dyad, the chromosomal division into two types to be realized through their subsequent union. The context of that union is represented by the enclosing diamond or vesica. Being on the path, the adepts have grasped ideas that are both positive and negative, active and passive, male and female, and thus, as Crowley writes in Magic, fit to exist above the abyss in the night of Pan. Ultimately, the adjustment trump with its phallus-bearing goddess can be seen as yet another form of the Baphometic gynander. The corresponding values to equilibrium for healing and of the earth are together suggestive of Liber Legis, chapter 1, verse 53. This shall regenerate the world, the little world, my sister, my heart and my tongue, unto whom I send this kiss. Equilibrated initiation not only serves to redeem the individual, but to regenerate the world. It is the kiss toward Hadid from Nuit, passing through and reconstituting the universe, or Pan, which lies between the asymptotes of all-encompassing continuity and atomic individuality. Now, I will digress here to a set of three god names that I take to be implicit in the Paian and the name Pan. Although these names were not part of the Star Ruby, as written by Crowley, I am going to explore their correspondences because of their importance in my personal practice. These words are an acrostic, make Pan into an acrostic, of the three gods, Priapus, Hades, and Nike. The words corresponding to the value for Priapus include terms fitting for the god of gardens, such as bud, which should be read with reference to Liber Aleph, chapter 86, as well as the beautiful, and the work of the gardener, which is the task of a master of the temple. A second set of terms brings to mind an armed knight and his relations with a maiden. The god Hades is characterized by his invisibility, his unbroken grasp on his treasures, which include human souls, and the barrenness of the winter earth after his rape of Kore. His realm is the fatal interiority of persons and events, the timeless world of the ancestors proper to this ceremony, where his initial Aleph is, or Alpha rather, is the heart of Pan, who is at the center of this rite. The soul correspondence listed for Nike is admittedly not very illuminating. Now, taking these three terms and synthesizing them according to our now accustomed method, we find the total of the values, an expanded form of Pan, corresponding to panic or fear that the god instills in mortals. Note also the translation of Phobos as Pachad, a title of Geburah with the value of 93. The value of Cosma suggests that abyss, which is known as consciousness and the universe, and which is a wound in the unity of the real. The arithmetic mean indicates that each of the component gods is whole and an integral expression of divine law. Although it appears by position that Hades is the heart of the formula, Each of them are entitled to the center in a sort of holographic arrangement. Each of these constituents of the demonized shepherd god Pan is equally a sort of forbidden wizardry. Gois is the root of Goetia, or filth that has been abominated by the worshippers of the slave gods. These three are the idol, the devil, and the goddess, a most sacred trinity, the principal theological operators of the unconscious. In this aspect, they even correspond to the great ones of Liber Legis, the visible object of worship, Ra Hor Kuit, the secret serpent, Hadit, and the queen of space, Nuit. The geometric mean suggests the intercourse between the magician and his genius, which empowers this ritual, and to which the practitioner aspires in the Paian. The breath is spirit, pneuma, ruach, ruh, nefesh, nafs, and so forth. Just as Tetragrammaton Elohim first breathed into his nostrils the breath of life and limitation in Genesis chapter 2, so the holy guardian angel breathes the dissolving breath of the infinite into the spirit of the magician. As Adonai speaks in Liber 65, chapter 1, verse 15, I breathe, and there is infinite disease in the spirit. This verse is glossed by Crowley as life disturbs the placidity of the mind's acceptance of dead symbols as reality. The correspondences for the harmonic mean suggest that the result is a paradox. The force capable of devastation creates a pasture suited to pastoral Pan for the abode of the magician. Now we turn to the classes of guardian spirits, originally from the Chaldean oracles of Pseudo-Zoroaster. The individual values of these names, Yungis, Teletarchais, Sinokes, and Daimones, they yield correspondences that are difficult to interpret. Now, the mean values are another story. The corresponding terms eidolon and plerophoria for the arithmetic mean indicate that each quarter's guardians should indeed appear visually as an image to give the magician full assurance of the efficacy of the ceremony. As Crowley remarked to his Agape Lodge pupils regarding the archangels in the Lesser Pentagram ritual, note well that they should appear, and if the ritual is properly performed, do appear. Nor does this remark prohibit the active application of the imaginative faculty. In the same memo he wrote, you can figure out yourself the forms of the angels, or rather the archangels, proceeding to outline the customary Golden Dawn procedure for building up the image of an angel from the correspondences of the letters of its name in Hebrew. The further correspondence of the Megas Hiereus indicates that the guardians are all invested with the eonic power of the priest of the princes, whose initiative made them a part of this ritual. And while archipoemen could metaphorically refer to the same hierophantic office, it also has a biblical provenance in reference to Jesus, but perhaps most importantly serves to denote the power and position of the chief shepherd, Pan. The correspondences for the geometric mean indicate that when the magician has been enclosed in his consecrated box, as Crowley called the outcome of the pentagram ritual in a 1914 letter to the Occult Review, the lineal figures should be gloriously shining. He is then in a position to be fully at home in his astral circumstances. The letter psi, indicated by the value of the harmonic mean, was traditionally used as an abbreviation for psyche or soul. This phase of the ceremony has confirmed and consummated the soul's willingness to be true to its genius, integrating its powers through the formulae of the new law. If the cloven tongues, like as of fire, Kabbalistically shin, on each of the faithful in the Pentecost legend were a sign of the indwelling of the Holy Spirit, how much more so are the complete array of 6 stars, 4 pentagrams and 2 hexagrams, formulated by this ceremony, with their total of 32 points, corresponding to the complete 32 paths of wisdom. In the Sefer Yetzirah, these 32 paths are correlated to the 32 teeth of a human mouth, and Shin is verily a tooth. The benediction of the All-Begetter, All-Devourer be upon thee. Apopantos kakodaimonos! Love is the law. Love under will.